Hello, welcome back to Fist Entertainment for our next review, which is part of the Twilight Forever box set. And we're talking about 2009's The Twilight Saga's New Moon. Again, I saw this one in theaters in 2009. And I actually thought it was pretty decent movie. I think enjoyed this one a bit more than I did the first film. The first film and this film are definitely not my favorites. I do have two in particular which I think are better than the rest of them, and we'll get to those eventually. The box set obviously has no plot synopsis to read from, so I will go ahead and do it the old-fashioned way, yet again, which I will be doing for all these films. Taking place during the main character, Bella Swan's birthday, played again by Kristen Stewart. She pricks her finger on something, and it basically, out of the vampire covenant that she has kind of become friends with, and fell in love with one of them. One of his cousins basically is over there. Jasper goes into a frenzy, and Edward, again played by Robert Pattinson, has to stop him. And then he comes to the conclusion that he's no good for her, and he needs to protect her. So he leaves, leaving her and her love behind, where she has psychological issues, extreme psychological issues, to where she befriends her Indian friend, who's a childhood friend, Jacob. And when she thinks things are starting to get a little bit normal, she discovers that her childhood and lifelong friend, Jacob, happens to not be all that he seems when he suddenly gets sick and then recovers, but there's a catch. He is a werewolf. And so she again gets trundled into the world of the supernatural, when she has to cope with the fact that her best friend is a werewolf, and that he has fallen in love with her, although she still loves Edward. And then the two cross werewolves and the vampires when Jacob plays a coup when Edward finally calls to check up on Bella, and he pretends like she's dead. So Edward wants to kill himself by breaking the rules, by exposing himself to the outside world, with having pretty much the government of the vampires, known as the Valturi, to kill him. So Bella has to go pretty much to Rome to stop him. And then they finally reunite. And then they have to come up with a plan for future to turn Bella into a vampire, or else the entire covenant will be wiped out for the Valturi. I think that's the easiest way to kind of explain the plot of the movie in the quickest way I can. Alright, quality. This one I think is actually just a hair darker looking in terms of cinematography than the first film, but the cinematographer is so good with these films that you can still make out everything that's going on in the film. But while the first film had a little bit more of, despite being a dark atmospheric film, had more of blues and white color temperatures within the cinematography of the film. This one is more towards the balance of sort of green and red warmer tones with the overall cinematography of the film. The audio is in 5.1 DTS HDMA, master audio. And something I did forget to talk about in the last one was the audio for Twilight. More front bass, but when they do use surround, it's definitely there. In terms of New Moon has sort of a stereolized effect at times with the film, with this 5.1 presentation, to where although there's stuff going on both sides of the sound stage, at times for just a slight second or two it will push a little bit more over to one side or the other side in terms of the 5.1 presentation, but still a very, very good presentation indeed. And I think it really depends on your equipment, really depends on how well it's calibrated and so on, but it does at times do that. I'm the average theater setup. It is in 2.4.1 CinemaScope widescreen format. And yeah, I actually enjoyed this one. Definitely did. And I think it actually shows Kristen Stewart really showing a lot of good acting chops in this one. She does a lot more in this one than she did in the first. Most of the really brilliant acting in the first film was really done by the editor lead, which is, of course, Robert Pattinson's character, Edward Cullen. In terms of New Moon, I think that it really shows a lot of acting chops with really the main lead character, which is Bella Swan, which is played by Kristen Stewart. Tyler Lager, who plays, of course, Jacob in all these films, as well as the first one. He has a lot more to do in this movie, but I'll just face it, give it to you straight. His acting chops really don't really come into play that much until really towards the end of this franchise. And his career never really did blossom off into a good career, unlike, say, the rest of the cast. There's a few that didn't really have much of a career, but the main people really did, except for Ashley Greene, who obviously plays Edward's sister throughout these films. But in terms of Robert Pattinson, Kristen Stewart, and Billy Blake, they all actually had pretty good careers and still do. But Tyler Lager didn't. He's really mostly tied to this franchise. But we do see a lot of him because in a lot of ways this is his movie. So that's all there's to say about the Twilight Saga's New Moon, and I will see you guys next time for my review of the Twilight Saga's Eclipse. Until then.